So I've been playing Final Fantasy VIII. Oh boy! I own so many weird, not often talked about, and interesting JRPGs, like Shadow Hearts, Devil Summoner 2, Off, and Contact. So of course, I'll be reviewing
Fantasía Final.
VIII is a game about a company called Squaresoft going completely haywire after having made $1 trillion off of the success of Final Fantasy VII, creating what could possibly be one of the most pompous, overblown, and messy JRPGs ever made by stuffing all mechanical conventions right up its fat ass and having the story center around Squall, a character spawned from the popularity of grunge and the emergence of emo. And I quite like him. Ellipses memes aside, his struggles with everything the story throws at him, from face tattoos and posers to incompetent damsels and cocky rifles, are certainly relatable. And I suppose the war that's going on is also a big deal. I mean, there's a dictator sorceress fucking up all kinds of shit, and also some really mysterious interdimensional stuff that somehow leads to
Fat Shrek
controlling the school from the sewers, a zombie president train battle, and everything being a dream, but then it isn't, but then it is. I'll be the first one to admit that I'm here because of other people. I'm fine by myself now. I have all the skills I need to survive. I'm not a child anymore. That's a lie. I don't know anything. I'm confused. Basically, the story is a big old mess with all kinds of ideas, moods, and concepts and character arcs very heavily grinding and mashing into each other at varying speeds. None of it ever feels consistent, and it's very hard to relate to anyone or anything when even the characters themselves don't know what to think or how to feel. Seriously, by the time even your fucking villain isn't sure of what they're doing anymore, or if they're even a villain to begin with, you may just have a little bit of an issue. There's no clear-cut goal or long-running main objective, I guess, and I can see how that leads to people rapidly losing interest in the plot. For me, though, I think I kinda like it. There's a very bleak and sterile tone to the game's storytelling. Even the more lighthearted moments still often end on a sour note. But that doesn't mean that the lighthearted moments aren't there. This is still by all means a Final Fantasy game. You hijack trains, pilot a flighting school, escape from prison, go to space, and explore future land. It's definitely a very eventful adventure is what I'm getting at here. And while the context of some things may be lost on some, I can't help but kind of enjoy it regardless. Plus, it's not like the story is entirely incomprehensible or as if it's 100% lacking in any type of sense. It's just they tried to write something really deep, but PS1 dialogue, a shoddy localization, and lack of experience made it a much bigger mess than it really ever had to be. But if given time, one could potentially grasp what's going on. It's not like Kingdom Hearts, where across the various spin-offs and sequels, it's spun into this huge nonsensical mess that requires an entire fucking web series just to explain the bloody plot. Final Fantasy VIII, on its own, is still a self-contained little story with a beginning and an end that sadly just wasn't handled very well. I am Squall. I totally don't look like Gact. This is a lie, okay? It's not true. So while the story could still be deemed enjoyable due to its characters, world, and some other things I'll get into later, without having a full grasp of the plot tying it all together, its mechanics and somewhat unorthodox systems may very well be a lot less fortunate, though not completely without their strengths either. In my original shitty draft of this script I wrote 4 or so years ago, I started off with a big dumb rant about the fanbase and how everyone is stupid and why I'm amazing. Pretty much what I'd wager any teenager would write, coming off of various threads starting with someone asking, "Hi,
I'd like to get into Final Fantasy VIII. It looks pretty cool. And ending with a fucking shitstorm of uninformed fan drones either damning the game entirely, saying it's pure unsolvable garbage, or praising it to hell and back for its mechanical intricacies and deep involving ability systems. Now, what if I told you that this game is pretty okay, but also still horribly flawed at the same time? 'Cause it is! Essentially, Final Fantasy VIII is one big subversion of traditional JRPG mechanics, stripping away everything the genre had built up to that point, and then restructuring it from there to create what are pretty much in-game hacking and modding tools. It's all very abstract, needlessly complex, and entirely broken. How it works is that magic, besides being castable spells in still fairly traditional turn-based battles, doubles as a type of ability boosting mechanic. Each and every single spell that you acquire by stealing, or drawing as the game calls it, from monsters or through sucking it out of these magic sparkly wells placed on the map, can be assigned to various attributes. This goes for some more straightforward stuff like equipping a healing spell to your HP attribute to raise your max HP, to having attributes dedicated to various immunities regarding the game's many status effects, buffs, and debuffs, leading to something like equipping a poison spell to your attack hit rate thingy, giving your basic attack a certain likelihood of inflicting poison. The game calls this
the junction system.
It's a bit of an odd way to do things, to say the least, but nothing too bad, right? Well, what kinda muddies this whole thing up are the game's summons. If you don't know, in most Final Fantasy games, summons are treated as nothing more than a type of magic spell, selectable from the battle menu, what then triggers the summoning of a type of god, often doing massive damage to all enemies on screen. And as a trade-off, shit drains your mana like crazy, so it ends up becoming something mostly reserved for bosses. In Final Fantasy VIII, however, they're an entire mechanic on their very fucking own. You still summon them in battle as per usual, sure, but now they also have their own statistics to worry about and play into
the junction system.
By gradually unlocking new junction capabilities and giving way to a plethora of other mechanics, such as being able to refine items or weapons into magic spells which are junctionable as well, or just by granting stat boosts marked as abilities, which are separate from the
junction system
as you level them up and use them in battle. It is one big, unintuitive, and highly exploitable clusterfuck that is in no way, shape, or form entirely graspable for anyone on their first fucking playthrough, leading to a lot of people outright giving up on the game after a first few hours, or taking it to the extreme and finding out ways to exploit its insane amount of options to acquire skills or stats like immortality only a few hours in. It's a bit of a problem, probably. The big culprit here is that the amount of a certain spell will also dictate how much a boost it'll give. You know, 5 fires raises your attack by 1, 100 fires raises your attack by 30. So, if one would be inclined to, you could totally grind for about an hour right after the opening sequence, draw like a zillion billion spells, and become OP almost instantly. And on the flip side of this, it also encourages you to refrain from using any magic, as you'll effectively gimp yourself by doing so, which gives way to summon spamming. This makes the boss fights very long and somewhat tedious because of it making you watch the same few animations over and 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 over. And don't misunderstand, them shits look fucking amazing and are a marvel of technical prowess or whatever, but they can't be skipped like in other Final Fantasy games because of this button mashy damage boosty mechanic, so you are fucked. For random encounters though, this isn't too much of an issue, and the battle system overall is actually quite fast and snappy and very fun to use. Even the sense of progression you get from the junction system is pretty sexy as well. You're not just leveling up, getting stronger in ways pre-programmed by the game. No, you actually grow your character by yourself. You could Hulk out and have 3 tanks, or have one character go the way of the mage, another go the way of the defensive character, etc. And once you do actually figure out this complicated system of fuck, you may also find that the menus are quite intuitive and well organized, even allowing the option to switch entire junction sets between characters with the push of a single button, which negates those moments where you get souped up with the underleveled B team for story reasons, as the junction system isn't intrinsically linked to a single character. The only downside to that is that on very few occasions, the game will just dump your shit for no good fucking reason. It's never too bad, but enough to make you go, upon opening your menu and realizing that you have to set everything up again, which takes fucking ages. Outside of its weird systems though, it's still a pretty standard JRPG. You go to towns with plenty of enterable buildings and charming NPCs, do some side quests and travel around the world in a well-hidden linear fashion. There's random encounters, occasional grinding, and hopefully plenty of fun. There sure as hell was for me. The entire game does kinda shit itself as it goes on by either becoming too easy or too hard near the end depending on your junctions, and the plot becomes overtly expositional discrete onward, with pompous abstract plot twists that make it very hard to keep interest, which is a shame considering how past the opening, it's actually pretty fucking cool. Like, people give the story a lot of flack, sometimes for a very good reason. But I'd also argue that it's just a tad misunderstood. Take Squall, for instance, our main character. He's kind of a douche, antisocial, wants nothing to do with anyone, hates everyone, hates himself, questions himself, thinks too much, never sleeps, jokes up, and yeah, I think you get the picture by now. He has
Social anxiety!
which is an odd choice for a JRPG protagonist, but one I do ultimately like. Thing is that through the onslaught of inner monologues, you really get to know the dude, so it becomes frustrating to see how much of a nice guy he really is inside of his head, and how that rarely ever shows when he's interacting with the others. And this is also where his character either fails or flourishes. I mean, you could either relate and accept the frustration as something you share with him, or just get really fucking frustrated.
People told me I couldn't sum up the divisive story in a concise manner. Well, I sure showed them.
Final Fantasy VIII hails from a time where the series' main art designer, Tetsuya Nomura, had yet to roid out and completely lose his fucking mind, eventually designing the character seen in The Bouncer, or the fucking priest featured in Lightning Returns. Actually though, what the fuck? But even in those instances, it's hard to deny how not only imaginative his designs are, but also how sleek, uniform, and consistent with the overall world and setting they are. And this game is the exact reason why, despite this, I still hold him in very high fucking regard. Everything just clicks. The almost Mirror's Edge-like clean, serene, futuristic sheen blends incredibly well with the game's old European architecture. The character designs are also rather subdued, and while some things do kinda echo Nomura's coke binges like the douchey face tattoos or Squall's gagged-like appearance, it still fits with the environments and NPCs like a fucking glove. This world is its own character pretty much. And yeah, absolutely, the game is a fucking mess, but the art direction almost sort of adds a sense of cohesion. And I like that. Not to mention the soundtrack that easily ranks amongst the greatest game and OSTs in the history of all time within the known universe, and fits the style to a T, and the jump in polygon count between this and Final Fantasy VII is fucking insane as well. Though, the close-up porridge faces are still a bit weird. In terms of how broken the game is necessarily being a bad thing though, I'd say that very much depends on how you look at it. You could say, wow, someone gained invincibility within 5 minutes. What a piece of shit. Just as well as, wow, someone gained invincibility within 5 minutes. What a surprisingly deep and funky gameplay experience. And I sincerely mean that as well. Besides, no one is going to break the game on their first playthrough anyway, and for repeated playthroughs, I don't think having some mad hacks are a bad thing per se. I do suppose that the bigger issue is just how comprehensible this game is for people new to the game, but it's hard for me to entirely don those proverbial shoes as I know the game very well, but I can't imagine that seeing all these percentages and variables and acronyms in this debug-looking ass gray and black menu could be pretty fucking daunting. It sure as fuck was giving me PTSD-style flashbacks to when I first dug into Armored Core.
Oh my god! Look at these numbers!